Thanks, everyone, for joining. We're going to jump right in. This was one of our best attended live events that we did so far in 2019, and due to just overwhelming demand, we wanted to make sure that we brought this content out to as many virtual participants as possible. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We've muted all lines. Please go ahead and send real-time chat in. We'll make sure that we address any questions that anybody has and use it as a way to stimulate conversation throughout the webinar. Again, very happy that everyone could join us. We've got Mike Hamilton with us as well. Mike's the VP of Product, one of our partners that's a real disruptor in this space and has an unbelievably close alignment with Microsoft and Cisco, and I think he's going to share one perspective with everybody today that I think you all will find incredibly valuable. But before we introduce Mike, I'd love to jump into just a little bit of primer on how we're going to how we think about the marketplace here at ARG. So my name is Mike Schonholtz. I run sales and marketing at ARG, been around the space for 15 plus years. ARG, though, has been around for almost 30 years. We service nearly 4,000 customers every single day, helping them really navigate through what is overwhelming choice in the marketplace. Unlike any other time in history, right now, the ability for clients and IT professionals in organizations of all sizes have access to technology that even 5-6 years ago was only available to the largest companies that had massive IT staff and lots of engineering and expertise around applications. And today, with the proliferation of cloud, those technologies are available at a reasonable price that allow us to really take advantage of these advancements in technology. So we're really helping our clients every single day kind of sort through that overwhelming choice and make the right choice for their organization so they can take advantage of what's happening in the marketplace right now. Just as a reminder, we're running these webinar and in-market events kind of all over the United States. We started with business continuity and disaster recovery. Making sure that your business is protected is really the first step in any journey of implementing new technology. Specifically, when we go in and meet with clients, we many times talk to them about what their cloud strategy is, what their IT roadmap is, and the first step in that journey is always making sure that there is a sound business continuity, disaster recovery, and backup plan. At that point, we can then talk about which applications and workloads should be or could be moved to the cloud and what the best practice is for that migration. The next step that we explored just a couple months back was security, and really how do you ultimately create your security pitch. There are 8 or so elements to that. We're bringing that webinar series to you all virtually next month. And now the next step in that journey, so after we protect our business, after we move the appropriate application workloads out to the cloud, after we've secured the business, we really are now taking a look at how do we create a highly mobile workforce and extend all those applications and that communications experience out to everybody in the organization. So just at a high level, what are we seeing out in the marketplace today? Well, this is just performance of companies in the overall market, legacy telcos, data centers, integrators, tech cloud space, and unified communications, and their performance over the last 12 months against the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ. What you'll notice here on the far right side is the overperformers in the marketplace are really in the cloud communication space. The rest of the market, whether it be the legacy telecommunications firms, they're having a tough time, and everyone else, including the OEMs, are kind of reacting to this fundamental shift in the way that people are communicating differently in 2019 maybe than they had in the past. So what's happening in the state of the industry? What we're ultimately seeing, or what we saw back in 2017, is an inflection point. That inflection point included cloud surpassing on-premise telephony deployments for the first time in history. And then what we saw subsequently after 2017 is a series of events that ultimately firms like Mitel acquired ShoreTel, Avaya files for bankruptcy because they just completely missed the fundamental shift in the marketplace. Mitel then goes private shortly thereafter. Windstream files for bankruptcy and reorganization, and actually 2019 was the final year Gartner reviewed on-premise PBXs as part of the Gartner Magic Quadrant. So outside of just the inflection point that isn't happening, it's already happened, and now we're seeing the reaction from the OEMs and from the marketplace into this cloud communications space. So that's what's happening in the market, but what are the teams doing? So ARG has the benefit of meeting and executing on nearly 2,000 projects every single year. Over the next 36 months, we know our clients will be buying new technology, whether it's moving more applications to the cloud, thinking about new ways to deploy desktops, disaster recovery, or unified communications. As it breaks down, as far as the 2,000 projects we did last year, this is the breakdown that you're seeing. We're seeing about 28% of the projects around legacy telco and connectivity. That still becomes the long pole in the tent in many technology decisions or deployments, making sure that there's a network. But the fundamental shift in the network decision is really around an area that's continuing to grow about 3 down here, which is software-defined wide area networking. We're actually seeing clients reimagine the way they deploy their networks, and they're no longer anchoring to the AT&Ts and Verizons and CenturyLinks of the world as a single MPLS provider. They're looking at new ways to simplify the number of endpoints that they have to manage and new ways to deploy their network. So those two things are really interlinked. But if you look at the other two here, almost 40% of the projects that we were involved in last year were around collaboration, UC, and contact center, and the balance of which were really around infrastructure, disaster recovery, co-location, and security. So outside of the market's reaction to what's happening, we're also seeing that this isn't about early adoption anymore. This really is about clients thoughtfully moving applications and getting the most out of these technologies. And this is just a nice breakdown of, if you're asking yourself, what are my peers doing? Well, these are the projects. So if you kind of extrapolate that over the next 3 months, we believe many of our clients, if not all of them, will start taking advantage of these new technologies. So we're in a point in time where these things are mature and they're ready. So as it relates to one perspective in the marketplace, I wanted to introduce Mike Hamilton from Evolve IP. So again, there are really a couple questions as you think about your collaboration and unified communications environment. The first of which is, what do I do with the firms that I used to trust for my communications environment? Do I go to Teams or do I look at a proprietary application? It brings the perspective of, what is Cisco and Microsoft doing out in the marketplace? This is certainly one choice. It's not always the right choice for every client, but at the end of the day, many of the engagements that ARG gets involved in, there are existing investments and there's comfort around either the Cisco platform or the Microsoft platform. And in many cases, the conversation starts with, well, if I've already made an investment, as an example in Microsoft, how do I maximize that investment? ARG is here to help you make the right choice. There are many of those, but being is that we're starting to see some themes in the marketplace as it relates to both the evolution of those product sets and how they're ultimately deployed. We really thought it was critical to bring some perspective here from Mike Hamilton. So Mike has been with Evolve IP since their inception. He's helped build operations. So he's really, in many cases, sat in your seat. He's currently the VP of Product Development. Mike is super plugged in to what's going on with Cisco and Microsoft, not just what they're able to deliver to clients today, but also what's on the roadmap for the future. Mike's going to take us a layer deeper on the opportunity that exists with Teams and both with Cisco and Microsoft specifically. So with that, Mike, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Looking forward to you taking us just a little further specifically on those two platforms.
Thank you, Mike, for that intro. Looks like we might have a little feedback from your line, which is now gone. Awesome. So I want to welcome everybody today to the presentation. My goal for all of you as the audience here is to think about exactly our tagline there, the Cloud Strategy Company. I want you all walking away thinking about, I know more information about what Microsoft is doing, what Cisco is doing, and some things to think about so you can start to focus more on the strategy and where you would make some decisions going forward, and less about jumping right to some of the things that we see in the marketplace, which is a demonstration, a feature, such as, do you integrate with Microsoft Teams or do you integrate with Salesforce.com? Hopefully you think about some more deeper questions and you think about your Office 365 packaging, your cloud applications. Maybe you're coming from a Cisco call manager and you think about, okay, I've heard about Microsoft Teams cloud phone system. What will I get? What might I lose? And so on and so forth. So with our agenda here today, It's about cloud adoption in the UCaaS market. Some of our partners that we utilize for our market research with Gartner, with Frost and Sullivan, and then how do we actually look at the things that take place in the market really around either big vendors making some newer investments into unified communications such as Zoom, and then other vendors, some of their acquisitions, and what does that really play out in terms of where the leading vendors such as Microsoft and Cisco and Slack and what direction they're headed, and how does that really affect some of your existing investments and then your future decisions. And that'll all lead into some of our strategy and some closing thoughts here. Given that we've consistently run some surveys based on our marketing team that expands far outside of our own existing client base, but really into the market itself, we've got some great research number ourselves, and then we lean on Frost and Sullivan, who does a great deep dive into the buyer's guide and white papers around specific vendors and their capabilities, both domestic and abroad. Certainly the Gartner Magic Quadrant is something that a lot of people have put value in historically, but that's starting to take a step back, and they're going to focus more on a North American buyer's guide rather than actually just the Magic Quadrant, which has really been pared down to those that own their platform and service from the cloud. We've got the Cisco's connection content that used to be BroadSoft Connections. That's now become the Cisco Connections annual event, and then the Microsoft Tech Community. So lots of forums where you can mine the information and the data and the research to really set up where the market's headed. This is something based on our own information and our own survey. So in 2013, just 53% had said at that time that they were cloud believers, and now that's already up to 72.5%. So we're really seeing some of that drastic growth. Even the early adopters are now actually putting more and more services in the cloud rather than it just become the first service that they migrated to the cloud back in 2013. So with the UCaaS market itself, we want to go ahead and think big picture. Unified communications, cloud calling, right there in the middle of your screen, you're seeing a 16% CAGR. Okay, so tremendous growth going back from 2015 all the way into 2022. So that continues to grow at a tremendous rate. And what you're starting to see is Cisco, again, now starting to migrate away from their premise-based first strategy to their cloud, to their HCS platform, starting to position things, and no longer are people first starting to think about big iron, let me put this in my data center or in my closet. We've got cloud contact center. The large players in the market, such as Genesys, Five9, and Contact, or NICE and Contact, seeing that 20% CAGR growth. And I don't want to leave behind on the left-hand side here, and Mike mentioned this in his opener, he really had the three in the bucket, which was unified communications, contact center, and then there's still conference calling. Still seeing tremendous growth forecasted here from Cisco going all the way through 2022, and that's largely due to the distributed workforces, smaller offices located more around the United States and globally, and then also the growing adoption of the work from home policy also. It emphasizes cloud conferencing growing, whether that just be audio or audio and video. Now we want to go ahead and layer in on top of that the combination between contact center and UC at being $22 billion market. Can we layer in the collaboration market and enterprise workspace for another $18 billion, taking that to a total of $40 billion that's available out there for us to go ahead and think about how do we kind of chip away or grab our piece of the pie of that and do so very consciously and very thoughtfully that's built for growth and understand the market opportunities and risks that surround us with some of that feature functionality. This will give a little timeline here or historical view as to where do we see businesses adopt cloud calling versus cloud collaboration. Many small to mid-market enterprises took on cloud calling, whether it even be just from Google Hangouts or whether it be from service providers that would introduce in the legacy term as VoIP. They needed DIDs, they needed an auto attendant, and they needed a basic phone system. So therefore, historically, small businesses and mid-market were very quick to adopt cloud calling. And then collaboration wasn't a big thing to them at the time. It was about their desk phone and their mobile phone. Since then, cloud collaboration now has really kind of hit the market and taken off. It's around legacy features of just simple screen sharing or desktop sharing, group chat, and those were some of the basic feature functionality. And now what you're seeing is as that functionality continues to grow with persistent chat and file sharing and the ability to mark up in real time, larger enterprises that were there first are now starting to actually focus their attention on migrating their premise-based PBXs and move towards cloud calling. So you kind of have those two markets shifting in those different directions in which everything's now really migrating towards the cloud as a whole and meeting each of those different market segments. As far as Gartner likes to lay things out, so I want to start out there on the right, which is around that plateau of productivity, because a lot of us are already thinking unified communications and contact center. That's there. People have already adopted it, and it's now about how do I layer in more services into my contact center, such as speech analytics, real-time alerts based off of speech analytics. So that's out there. That's growing at a nice, healthy rate. So as we start there on the left, now you start to think about the bots, the IoT, and then moving up into that hype cycle where workstream collaboration there highlighted at the top becomes this thing that ultimately you see sprinkled throughout a business starting to adopt, starting to gain some proficiencies on it. Then you're going to find out that a lot of different businesses have been allowed to acquire Slack for software development and their engineering teams, while others are utilizing Salesforce.com's Chatter. And you got these different ways to use workstream collaboration. So you kind of have this trove disillusionment. And then it's going to start to take back off because you'll have that consolidation take place. And then the winners are going to win out and the big players are going to start to gobble up some of the smaller niche players that came out with some really creative products, but ultimately are going to go ahead and struggle to maintain a feature comparison against the large players. It's all impacted by our mobile devices. That's really what this slide's about. So group texting. We all do this in our personal lives, so now we're starting to take personal experiences from our mobile devices and our tablets and transform that, saying if it's really easy to do on my cell phone, whether it be my Android or my Apple device, I want to go ahead and have that same easy-to-use experience in business as well, especially when it comes around video. The legacy model that you would show up in a conference room and it would take you 10 minutes to get ready to fire up a video session. Now people think I should walk in there, my meeting's already scheduled, and with a click of a button on a tablet, it should go ahead and initiate the video conferencing. And I'm no longer looking at people thinking about what's your extension, what's your DID. It's about searching, whether it be typing in a couple of characters on a person's name to be able to search them out, or using speech to text, where I should be able to say, go ahead and call Mike Schonholtz, and then go ahead and look him up and send that outgoing call. So now we have the emergence of workstream collaboration here. Historically, a lot of people would have thought about this more in terms of logos. You know, hey, we need Slack. Nobody said, I need workstream collaboration. Go get me Atlassian or Stride because I need my teams to constantly be able to communicate and work on projects around the world in real time. And if somebody's off, it's no longer about digging through emails. They've got to be able to just look up at that persistent chat history in the group and in a public space so they can read through on it and they can check in on a topic and actually see, oh yeah, Microsoft Teams security. Look at this thread. It's 30 messages deep and there's some links going out to Microsoft's web page, and there's also files that have been dropped in there. And the files that are dropped in there are now linked to whatever file sharing application the business makes of choice, whether it be Dropbox or OneDrive. The key features here are around persistent chat. And what that means is it's always available. When you open it up, you can simply just scroll back. You don't need to click buttons to say, go get me last week, go get me last month, or show all of my history here. With file sharing, it's typically linked to online sites so that you can constantly edit and revise documents and keep a version history there of it. It's no longer saved on a file sharing server where you constantly have to think about the path to be able to get to that folder. Audio and video conferencing natively offered where users expect to be able to access it from PC, whether it be Windows, Mac, mobile devices, Android, iOS. You fire up the app. Now they all offer push notifications, so you no longer even think about texting me if something's urgent. Just a message to me individually or by mentioning me in a channel, it's going to go ahead and give me a notification on my mobile device. External guest access is key too, because I need to be able to collaborate with my third-party teams or with clients, and you want them to be able to pull down the meeting notes. So it's very transparent and it's always available. When we think about some of the different ways that we've communicated historically, this picture right here really starts to show some of those different silos and kind of who started and specialized where. So with Slack and Atlassian, they were really kind of the pioneers in this workstream collaboration space. In small groups within your organization were allowed to go and they implemented it because it actually made their lives a lot easier. And then everybody had to kind of choose, am I going to be more of an Office 365 or a Microsoft shop, or am I going to be a Google shop and be more online? Now those worlds have kind of come closer together as Microsoft has mimicked Google's way of doing business all online. You've got Zoom. The Blue Jeans will be another in the meeting space. Cisco WebEx, GoToMeeting, Join.me, ReadyTalk. A lot of different names there with the meetings focused specific specialization. And then you've got what we call proprietary players, those that have built out their own platforms, RingCentral, 8x8, Fuse, Vonage, BroadSoft. And then when we take the lower right, IBM Watson and Facebook for Business, they want to kind of have very specialized focused or apps that typically get plugged into other things that you're utilizing. They're not at the forefront of your desktop, but instead they're offering technologies that the other applications are utilizing on the back end. So what comes out of some of our market now? Phone calls and meetings, much more increasingly planned activities. We're all getting more into a mode of not right now, reject the call, send me a chat and say, do you have a few minutes? Yes, I do. How about at 11:45 we meet? Or let's schedule something for a little later on this afternoon, because we're thinking about our workspace and projects, and I want to continue to stay in that mode or that frame of mind. And robocalls are increasing, unsolicited sales calls are increasing, and we want to have a little bit more of a thought around, I'll carve out time for you and I can focus on this, and how about we get some meeting notes together, an agenda, so we can make best use of our time, and then actually go back to it and build off of it. So what this leads to is you've got all those vendors. And historically now, we're starting to say what acquisitions and what can we take from those and start to think about the future. So Cisco acquires BroadSoft, you're going to see in a minute. Basically, you put the two largest voice platforms together. And now you can see different properties get commingled to really elevate what Cisco is able to do in terms of their feature functionality and solutions. Microsoft goes all in. Let's start to get away from Skype for Business and move towards Microsoft Teams. Slack acquires Stride from Atlassian. Now they can go ahead and build more voice and video and collaboration into what they focused on in terms of their channels. Slack was great about channels and notifications to always keep you up to date. Zoom's starting to get into the voice realm, and Google is starting to break apart some of their properties and then start to mold them back together again to meet business needs and try to move more up market. What we believe is Cisco and Microsoft are going to dominate the market. Brand recognition, when you take one that focused more on collaboration, and now they've gone ahead and put more properties into their voice platform, workstream collaboration, and the other that focused much more in the voice space is now going ahead and focusing more in the collaboration space. They can both accelerate with different ideas in mind. Cisco being much more in the globalization, security. We're going to be much better at data integrity and how data centers communicate, Microsoft is going to win with their ecosystem and in a feature functionality competition. So Microsoft's strategy, and this goes back with some of their announcement, that Skype for Business Online is going to go away. Skype for Business premise-based is going to go away, and they're forecasting all the way out as far as 2025. So these runways can be very long, but what's going to naturally happen is the feature functionality demand of the end users is going to look to accelerate this. And so decision makers have to really think about, how do I get there and develop our strategy for voice features, contact center, workstream collaboration, and then there's this big bucket now that continues to increase, which is going to be integrations. For example, if you're utilizing Microsoft Teams, you have a need, much like this webinar, to run large audience webinars with multiple presenters that can be recorded. Maybe it's streamed on Facebook, and the features go broader and larger. So therefore, a few users in the organization are always going to need Cisco WebEx accounts. And Cisco WebEx and Zoom, they integrate with Microsoft Teams. So you start to think about, that's what I need. I need a Microsoft Teams approach, but then I need some of these other applications that nicely integrate with it. And similar with Cisco. Then you'll think about, how does Salesforce.com or maybe my Zendesk ticketing system integrate, and so on and so forth. So you start to line up the strategies around the applications that people utilize throughout your business and say, who supports what? Cisco, Microsoft, maybe it's 8x8, RingCentral, some of those proprietary players. You think about those applications and then paint a picture of how you get there. So with Microsoft specifically, we've got this direct routing in Teams. This is highly talked about lately. So Microsoft is finally tipping their cap that they don't want to be the upstream PSTN and session border controller provider. They don't want to port numbers and specialize at being good with FCC and government regulations around the world. They've tried it, but now they've started to say, let's go ahead and focus on collaboration ourselves. And if we open up our platform, that's now going to allow service providers to just layer in thousands and thousands more endpoints for us in our sweet spot. So this is really the architecture. All of the users here on the right-hand side are going to have either Microsoft Teams clients or Teams enables phones, and they're going to directly connect back to Microsoft's cloud here in the middle. And then from there, you build trunks. Service providers can build trunks, and even large enterprises can do this themselves. They would build trunks to come back to their session border controller first, which is the top icon that you see here. And then us, like Evolve IP and other service providers that want to get into this space, can now start to do really cool things that Microsoft is not going to focus their time and attention on, such as introducing ATAs for analog ports, overhead paging systems, the front door that keeps your building secure that allows your receptionist to buzz people in, receptionist applications that allow them to drag and drop callers, easily IM with the rest of the people in the organization, no presence throughout it. There's lots of things that Microsoft does not offer today, and quite candidly will not always offer in the future, because they're going to focus more in the collaboration space, and they're always going to pick up and add some features in the voice space as they go to their phone system, but it's not going to be at the forefront. You're not going to see them get into advanced contact center features and skills-based routing and wallboarding and dashboarding for queuing of calls. So what will we recommend? Start piloting Microsoft Teams. Whether you're a Cisco shop or whether you're thinking about going proprietary, kick the tires on it. Give it to a part of your business that is quick to try to adopt newer technologies, and I say try to adopt it by forcing their business process flows to change. That's where the real long pole is at. It's not about can you install it and can you make people log into it and will they be able to place a soft client call. It's all about will they start to adopt persistent chat and scheduling your video conference calls through there, turning on their video cameras to stay connected to the other users that they work with around the world. Will they start to create a project in there and a channel and add the features that they need and then really march towards greater user adoption and proficiency? For those of you that have not seen what Microsoft Teams looks like, it's a little screenshot here. On the left-hand side, you have your most basic icons for how do I communicate with people. I have my activity, which is my notifications for calls or chats, what should get my attention. What are my chats, whether they're individual or group chat. Then my teams. So you see the Teams icon is highlighted. And these are all of my teams. These are projects with our compute product development team. What are the things that they're working on? And you can see here the Microsoft CSP is highlighted. So now files have been shared. The members of the teams can click on it. They can open it either within Microsoft Teams, or they can actually trigger it to open up through Excel Online, or even in the native downloaded Excel application on their desktop. There is a subject here labeled CSP-PowerShell MFA, multi-factor authentication setup, and you see links. This is that idea now that the teams met, they're working together on this, and somebody might be on vacation, and when they come back, they can much more easily access all the content and the information that the team's working on, not have to dig through email to go back and get that. That's where Microsoft's headed, Cisco's strategy. Traditionally, they've been on the left, premise-based. They want to be able to open up some of their premise-based so people could build integrations to it. Then they've started to migrate more towards the cloud, hybrid scenarios. So they're going to put some of their services on HCS. They build trunks, and then they have their call manager on-premise at their largest sites, and they would go ahead and have this hybrid scenario. And now they're really pushing. They're working their VARs into how do we get our clients to fully move to the cloud. After their acquisition of BroadSoft, they say we really have all the tools that we need that satisfy all market segments. So let's come up with some programs, and they've called it Flex, which is really around licensing and pricing based on any three of their models to fit all of their markets. Whether you want to stay premise-based, you want to go hybrid, or you want to go to the cloud, they want to, much more like Microsoft, bundle their solutions and offer you attractive licensing options and give you rebates or monthly recurring credits on a per-user basis for their clients that have already invested in Cisco. They don't want to throw all that away. They want to go ahead and make their customers feel warm and take advantage of some of this flex modeling while they move other applications up to the cloud. And a lot of this has been enabled now through that acquisition of BroadSoft, the back-end platform that was the #1 hosted voice over IP provider in the world. Now they have right around that 60% market share, so they're in a great position to succeed. BroadSoft was a great software property, hosted call manager, and their premise-based being all about calling. Let's go ahead and smash those two together and start to build out some different swim lanes, whether it be more voice-centric, more in the middle of a hybrid, or up in the right-hand side, Cisco WebEx calling and their cloud applications being where they want to communicate and collaborate. So they want to enable their sales teams and their VARs to work with clients to ask them the first and most basic question. What's your strategy? With Cisco, are you thinking about going premise-based, hybrid, or you want to go all in cloud? We've got all the solutions here for you to do it scalably and securely here in the U.S. and around the globe. Let's go ahead and think about where you want to be. Are your users basic instant messaging and presence and chat with UC1, or should we focus more on the WebEx properties around Cisco Teams and think about that workspace and enterprise collaboration? If you haven't seen what Cisco is doing in the enterprise collaboration space, here's what they're at. They're taking their legacy properties of WebEx meetings and Cisco Jabber and Cisco Spark, and they're pulling together those messaging platforms on the back end, and now they're starting to tailor it towards that web-based meetings and online enterprise collab space. So similarly, what I just showed you with Microsoft, you've got your icons on the left-hand side. How do I want to get alerted and notified when someone's trying to reach out to me? How can I call people, chat with them, whether it be individual or a group, or view my meetings? And then just like you're seeing here, I've got my teams highlighted. So now I can go ahead in a group setting, I can message everybody, I can meet, I can start a whiteboarding session and build off of there. And what this would now take you into is the exact same things that I showed you with Microsoft Teams. Your ability to start subjects, threads, channels, and attach files to it so it's always persistent. And even if you're a Cisco WebEx Teams shop, you can go ahead and link this to your OneDrive or to your Dropbox or other online file sharing applications. So again, you're thinking, I don't need to forklift those files. So with the Evolve IP strategy, now thinking about where Cisco and where Microsoft are going, there's some things to think about. Number one, for your business, if you're government, if you're nonprofit, if you're education, very attractive plans together for Office 365. Microsoft wants to incent you to take their cloud applications, but maybe your voice system was a legacy telco, or maybe it was on Ring Central, maybe it's on Evolve IP. So now you're starting to think, how do I leverage more of what Microsoft is making available to me? And I don't want to get rid of that investment there. I want to put more information on Microsoft or more communications in their cloud. But there are certain things that they don't offer. So we're going to have to start to think about those checklists of what do I currently have with my call manager or with the Evolve IP voice platform or with other voice platforms that maybe Microsoft Teams doesn't offer. We've got to think about that's our space. Those are the gaps that we've got to fill, and I want to work with ARG. Hey, help us find out what those pitfalls might be so that I can better determine whether I should stay with Cisco or my voice platform. Maybe I want to put it together with Microsoft Teams. And then Microsoft keeps telling me I should just go with their calling platform and port all their numbers to them. Is that where I want to be? Those are some things that you want to think about. And for Evolve IP, we've already put a lot of thought into where that market's been historically. We're very much in tune with Cisco being one of their Flex certified partners. We are very much in tune with Microsoft because we are a CSP provider, meaning we can migrate and manage all the Office 365 apps for customers. So we really have our fingers on all the pulses there to kind of know where people are going. To first educate them, help them make an informed decision, and go from there. So are we going to continue the past trend of selecting our collaboration products independent of our voice product? Meaning, am I going to allow people to go out there and get Slack or get Atlassian and implement that throughout the business? Or am I going to start to say, if Microsoft and Cisco have a collaboration platform, or Fuse or Vonage and the others in the market space, they all offer their own that's integrated with their UC platform. Am I going to buy that independent, or am I going to buy it coupled together? Microsoft and Cisco are primed to take advantage of that market share. And what you have to think about, I'm telling everybody, as contract length of terms start to go down to where 5 years ago, 7, 10 years ago, it was very natural to sign a 5 or a 7-year contract for voice and collaboration services. Now that's getting down into the 3-year market. You could feasibly implement all of your voice services, start to put in the collaboration, and it take you an entire year to go ahead and gain proficiencies in your Workspace collaboration. And if you're unhappy with your voice collaboration platform, I've got to forklift everything all at once, whereas I might want to have things independent. If you've got Google can live around with your Google apps and your collaboration. If you go Office 365, that can live independent of your voice platform. We at Evolve, we're going to lean into this trend. We're hitching our wagons, as we call it, to Microsoft and with Cisco within this space. So we want to be great at what they offer in terms of their collaboration and their voice platforms. Then we're going to focus on the value-added services on top of that. Contact center, things that we actually own our own IP around. How do we go ahead and continue to invest more money in that we quite candidly can do better than what Microsoft and Cisco are going to offer in that space? Offer the expertise that allow customers to go ahead and lean on us for coaching them on how to migrate their contact center. Let's go ahead and build text messaging using a web app right into Microsoft Teams because we know people are going to want to live there. And that same text messaging platform can be leveraged for contact center. It can be leveraged for emergency notifications within your business, IVR applications. And then we've got our entire compute space. So maybe you want to put your Office 365 apps inside of or desktop as a service, or you want disaster recovery. Those are the things that we can specialize in and let Microsoft and Cisco focus on their voice and collaboration platform. And we're there to make it better, and we're there to go ahead and focus on the feature functionality that they're going to lack. That's where we see ourselves in that space. And then we're going to go ahead and continue to think about opportunities. What Microsoft and Cisco lag behind in, that becomes the opportunity for us as service providers to take advantage of that. So right now I wanted to leave the last 10 minutes for any questions that have come in through chat. Also Mike or Lindsay or Erica, if you've also had any questions come up on your side from ARG.
Yeah, so one question. Thanks, Mike. That was great perspective. This is one is geared towards Microsoft. What's sort of the biggest unknown or challenge that you see clients facing when they're implementing, Microsoft, any of the Microsoft teams themselves? So, assuming they're expecting that this will be something, to interpret it a bit, that it's something that they could turn on and manage themselves. What are we seeing the biggest challenges there being for those clients?
Yeah. So the biggest challenges right now with implementing Microsoft Teams is that there's no one place to go to Microsoft with Teams and with their phone system and their voice offering to know every feature that it offers. Most of us in our space have put together a comprehensive guide of a ton of features with the check marks of all the things that you offer, right down to distinctive ringing, calling, hunt groups, and so on and so forth. With Microsoft, you don't get such a consolidated list. So the challenge or the fear there is that you go in that direction and you leave yourself exposed. I'll call it that right now Evolve has taken an approach, and I've stated that we're the safety net. If Microsoft does not offer it, we've got that, because our back-end BroadSoft Cisco platform is one of the best in the marketplace. So how do we go ahead and take advantage of those features to fit that gap? The second way to answer that, because that's focused on the voice side of it, is around training, user adoption, and integrations. As you go into Microsoft Teams, and Microsoft is going to tout the thousands of people that have adopted Microsoft Teams, but really what they're touting is they purchased the Office 365 that includes it. Are they giving us real clicks and analytic statistics as to who's using it? Because people will want to adopt it once they see how I, as a salesperson, or my role in support can change and become so much better if I was to start to shift my work in how I do business and create channels, and then invite external people to it so that they're not siloed into email, and we go ahead and build that out, and then life becomes a lot easier. So there's a lot of heavy lifting around training and integrations to build out Microsoft Teams to actually make it much, much better. And we're seeing that a lot of businesses are doing it department by department, and it easily taking it upwards of a year, even in some small businesses that only have between 250 users and 500 users in that space.
Yeah, we're seeing some of the same thing. I mean, the reality is you have to meet your clients and internal coworkers where they want to communicate, and more often than not, they're doing so via chat or some sort of written communication. They're netting out, like in the persistent chat in a document share, 2 or 3 turns before they're actually scheduling a call. And that's more often than not how we communicate in our personal lives. And that's just now extending to the workplace. So another question here. Can you walk us through some of the pricing models with Microsoft? Are you familiar with those? And then just kind of how that compares from a managed to unmanaged environment?
Yes. So with Microsoft, anytime you're thinking about Teams, Microsoft Direct Routing, and then working with a service provider to do the voice there, it's going to be very straightforward. It must be an enterprise package, an E1, an E3, or an E5. That's your baseline. Then any users can now add on the cloud phone system. That'll be an additional $8 for your E1 and your E3. It's included with E5. Then beyond that, what you could add on top of that would simply be an audio conference dial-in number, $4 per user. They don't want to give it away because nowadays it's perfectly acceptable, whether it be because of Cisco in the market, to just send a link to somebody and you meet online. Even if you get that on your email on your smartphone, you click on it. But that's $4 and that can be an additional add-on. So that is your baseline for Microsoft. Just to recap that, that's your enterprise packaging, E1, E3, E5. You need to layer on the cloud phone system, and then you may layer on the audio conferencing. And I should add one more, which is a little more recent. They've added a conferencing or a conference room licensing, which is $15 per conference room a month. That's for those, and I highly recommend that one. That's for those that want your conference room to have, say, a Logitech device with their tablet where that room gets added into Active Directory and everybody wants that one-touch experience. So that's your baseline Microsoft licensing. Now you would work with a service provider like Evolve IP to have your voice seats on top of that. And I say voice seats, I use that loosely. Think about it in terms of more about trunking and feature functionality on top of that to fit the PSTN calling that you need, maybe toll-free numbers, international calling, and so on and so forth. Now, what's advertised on Microsoft's website, if you truly went all in on Microsoft, aside from all of the cost components I just mentioned, you would then need a calling package, which is $12 for domestic calling. And if you need international calling, it's a little weird in the way they phrase it. It technically becomes $24, which is inclusive of that $12. So I tend to phrase it as $12 for your domestic calling, add on an additional $12 for your international calling. Those are the packages that you need to get out of the gate.
And competitively, as you know, with Evolve's lineage and the investments you've made in the BroadSoft platform, and as that's brought you into the Cisco ecosystem, and the investments that you're making in Microsoft, net Microsoft plus managed services and PSTN from a direct routing partner is competitive with what we'll see in the marketplace with, you know, Vonage, Ring Central, 8x8, Call Tower, et cetera?
Yes. Let me add one more thing with the kind of the Microsoft licensing is around the idea of a CSP or a cloud services provider. So you can either buy all the Microsoft licensing directly from Microsoft, and in some sectors you have to because, like, for instance, in nonprofit, Evolve IP can't provide that. So when we think about CSP, you can have somebody migrate you, manage all that licensing for you. Something that's very key is when you think about direct routing, it is a bit complex to set up with the Microsoft phone system. And the reason why I say it is because only some services and management of Microsoft can be done via their GUI in Office 365 admin portal. Otherwise, you need expertise in Microsoft PowerShell scripting. So that's just a little caution out there as the businesses on this call today do their homework. Figure out very quickly if you wanted to do some of this yourself or work with other CSPs, do they have that expertise to do Microsoft PowerShell scripting? Now, your question in terms of...
go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Now, your question in terms of how this aligns or Microsoft solutions align with Cisco's and their BroadSoft platform and their calling platform, and then the Ring Central 8x8s of the world. Microsoft is going to win a ton, and I think some people are going to struggle. We're going to see it in the small to mid enterprises quickly get adopted. I don't think you're going to see large businesses over 2,500 users go all in on Microsoft Teams with their cloud phone systems just yet. I think they're going to ride out their Skype for Business. But in that market segment, Cisco already has a huge market share in your 2,500 users and above. And they're going to continue to win there because of their reputation around the phone system, the brand recognition of the desk phone sitting on the desktop, their security, because everybody thinks of Cisco end-to-end, from security of the network, the switches, the routers, the firewall, and now you layer in Cisco WebEx Teams and everything else. And then kind of in the middle, you have the 8x8s and the Ring Centrals of the world that they're going to get some of their market share because they are $1 to $2 billion companies. They are able to throw a lot of resources at it, but the caution there is really, if you don't like certain components there, can you get away from their platform or on certain aspects of it? Can I decouple my voice from my enterprise collaboration, or does it all have to go in the same token? And while everything that you get from Microsoft that is natively integrated with their SharePoint, with their OneDrive, with their OneNote, and all their own apps, that all comes out of the box, it means 8x8 Ring Central, they've got to continually invest software development dollars in doing that and integrating their platforms there, or they're kind of fighting that wave a bit. And then Cisco certainly has their mentality of integrations with Microsoft as well. You're seeing more co-opetition there.
Good perspective. So, I think to wrap this up, because I think we're just about at time here. One, thank you everyone for joining. Mike, wonderful perspective on what's happening in the marketplace. I think I'll leave everyone with this. In this decision, the pace of change is like never before. There's complexity here. I'll take even Mike's comments a step further. You should not do this on your own. There's a lot of complexity here. Worlds are colliding and merging as it relates to the position of the VAR and the LAR and the software provider, and then what's happening in the collaboration space. And making the wrong choice can really, really hurt the business and cost you quite a bit. But there's an enormous opportunity on the other side of this if we can all do it right. So really appreciate everyone's time. Hopefully you all took something away from this. And if anyone has any further questions or would like to contact us, you can do so at info@myarg.com. Thank you all. Have a good one.